My sister's diary revealing her crush on the school's bad boy was discovered. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she tried to lie, claiming it was mine. Amidst the laughter, I admitted it in front of that bad boy. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. As I walked into the classroom that morning, I immediately sensed something was off. A crowd had gathered at the back of the room, buzzing with excited chatter. Someone spotted me entering and called out in a raised voice, "Shelley's here!" All at once, every head turned in my direction. Various gazes fixed upon me. I frowned. "What's going on?" Irene emerged from the crowd, her face full of concern as she grabbed my arm. "Sis, you're finally here." "Your diary." I pulled my arm away. "What diary?" Irene hesitated, glancing toward the bulletin board. I followed her gaze. Several papers were taped to the board. The cold draft from the doorway made the papers flutter. Malicious whispers rose around us. Who would have thought proper Shelley Webb fancied Asher Gray? You know what they say, bookworms always fall for bad boys. She acts so innocent, but who knows what she's really like? I remained expressionless as I listened. Irene, however, had tears in her eyes. She shouted at them, "Shut up! There's nothing wrong with liking someone. I'll tell the teacher if you don't stop." After her outburst, she pushed through the crowd. She ripped down all the papers, then held them out to me. Watching my face anxiously, she said, "Here, Shelley. Don't be upset." I didn't take them, just stared at the crumpled sheets. The elegant handwriting matched mine perfectly. The pages were filled with sentimental, romantic poetry. Without exception, each poem began with "to Ash." Ash. How sickeningly sweet. Shelley. The soft voice pulled me from my thoughts. I clenched my fingers, looking at Irene emotionlessly. "Do you find this amusing?" Irene froze, tears suddenly spilling down her cheeks. "Shelley. I know you're angry, but it wasn't my fault." She choked on her words, acting utterly wronged. I remained unmoved. With a cold laugh, I said, "We both know whose diary it is and who really likes Asher." Irene's expression momentarily stiffened. She probably hadn't expected such a strong reaction from me. I'd always given in before, never fighting back. One of Irene's friends stepped between us, unable to stay quiet. "That's enough, Shelley. Irene didn't post your diary. She even defended you just now. Well? Can you deny you like Asher?" Once again, curious stares converged on me. "Did you see how angry Shelley looked? I heard she's always been jealous of Irene. Now we can see it's true. Are they really twins? Irene's so pretty, they look nothing alike." The malicious whispers crept into my ears. I lowered my eyes, nails digging into my palms. It felt like 4 years ago all over again, when I'd been completely alone. Like drowning, with icy water closing over my head once more. That suffocating feeling of death. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the front of the classroom. I looked up in confusion. There stood the other subject of this drama, Asher Gray. The boy stood backlit in the doorway, hands in his pockets. His face dark with anger as he kicked another desk. Anyone else want to keep running their mouth? The classroom fell instantly silent. I looked back at Irene's tear-stained face. In the eerie quiet that followed, I spoke softly, "Yes, it's my diary. I like Asher Gray." After evening study hall, I went to my usual spot at the back gate of school to sell sausages. Just as I finished grilling the first batch, Asher showed up. He came to buy a sausage from me every evening. Though after what happened this morning, I thought he wouldn't come anymore. The dim light from my stall illuminated his handsome, arrogant face. With one hand in his pocket, he asked bluntly, "You fancy me?" My hand paused while turning the sausages. After a moment, I managed a faint yes. Asher raised an eyebrow. "You're not my type," he said casually. His tone wasn't advisory or warning. Just a casual remark. I stayed silent for a moment before saying, "I know." Asher had looks and came from money. A player who didn't take anything seriously, he was the talk of the school. He was equally casual about relationships. The school's most eligible bachelor never dated the same girl for more than a month. Without exception. They were all stunning beauties with perfect figures and elegant demeanors. Not an ordinary bookworm like me. I once saw a girl from the arts class clutching his jacket by the school gate, begging him to get back together. He pulled away expressionlessly. His voice was cold. I told you, it was just casual. Either of us could end at any time. Don't get emotional. In the cold wind, the fragile girl cried her heart out. The tall boy stood there coldly, finally tossing his jacket to her with a frown. I put the sausage in a bag. Handed it to Asher. £10, card or cash? Asher took out his phone and asked casually, price went up? I kept it brief, yes. The cold ping of the payment confirmation sounded. Another customer approached. 2 sausages please, how much? I nodded, speaking warmly, £5 for 2. Asher stood quietly nearby. After the customer left, he stroked his chin. Smiled lazily, only raising the price for me? Are you angry? It was late autumn now, with cold winds occasionally rustling through the plane trees. I tightened my fingers and looked straight into his dark eyes. Asher, if you don't like me, stop leading me on. Asher seemed momentarily stunned, as if shocked by my words. He rubbed the back of his neck. This counts as leading you on? I lowered my eyes. I like you, so everything you say and do feels like flirting to me. An unreasonable kind of reason. But Asher got it, and he left. Before leaving, he put a box of chocolates on the table. Returning your sweets from last time. I opened the beautifully packaged chocolates. Tried one piece. Very sweet. Last Saturday evening, I ran into Asher. He'd just been in a fight. Bruised and pale, he was slumped against the wall in a narrow, damp alley. I crouched in front of him. Asked, did you lose the fight, Asher? He laughed despite himself, glaring at me. I never lose fights. Then he closed his eyes again, frowning as he caught his breath. He really didn't look like someone who'd won. His sweat-dampened hair fell across his eyes. Blood still seeping from cuts on his forehead and lip. Then why do you look so rough? He half opened his eyes, his voice terribly hoarse. Never seen low blood sugar before, good girl? Got any sweets? I checked my bag, should have some. A minute later, Asher stared silently at the gingerbread in my palm. You call this sweets? Why not? I unwrapped it and firmly pushed it into his mouth. He frowned as he sucked on it. Then commented weakly, how can there be such awful sweets in this world? Take it or leave it. After packing up my stall, I went home. When I opened the door, I heard cheerful chatter and laughter from inside. As I entered, the mother and daughter who had been watching TV on the sofa lowered their voices. I stood in the hallway. Irene was leaning on Mum's shoulder. She gave me a cold look, probably still upset about my excuses this morning. My mum didn't look at me, continuing to knit without pause. I've left some dinner for you. I walked towards the dining table. Behind me, I heard Irene's sweet voice. Mom, I want to buy a new dress. Didn't you just buy 2 yesterday? Why another one? My mum's tone was both helpless and indulgent. Sports day is coming up at school, and I want to look pretty. Irene popped a grape into my mum's mouth. That was enough to make my mum beam with joy. I'll send you some money later, you can choose one yourself. I reached the dining table. There was still some porridge in the pot. Half a fish tail remained on the messy plate. Another plate had a few pieces of pepper and some minced meat left. Barely recognizable as stir-fried pork with pepper. I glanced at the food cover placed aside but said nothing. I finished the half bowl of cold porridge with the remaining sauce. After washing the dishes, I went to my room to study. Before long, the door opened from outside. How many times have I told you not to close the door? What horrible thing are you hiding? My mum scolded me. I took a deep breath and replied meekly, I understand. My mum strode into the room. Irene says she's struggling with maths. And with exams coming up, she wants you to tutor her. Her tone suggested it was a given. I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? My mom slapped the desk, raising her voice. Irene is your younger sister. How long would it take to help her with some lessons? I'd had enough of being the punching bag. I closed my book and looked at my mom. Younger sister? When we're not even 10 minutes apart? Watch your attitude. My mom exploded, spittle flying onto my book. It's all right, Mom. Irene appeared at the doorway. You know Shelley has never liked me. She has no right not to like you. My mom was still furious, pounding the table thunderously. I felt like laughing. The two of them had managed to pin another label on me in just a few words. I left home. Before I left, my mom told me it would be better if I died outside. How cruel. I walked alone on the cold, desolate street, kicking stones with my toes. Ever since I could remember. Irene had been in poor health, constantly in and out of hospital. My mom said it was because I stole all the nutrients from her. When we were in the womb, that's why she was always ill. So that's why no wonder Mom and Dad didn't like me. Young as I was, I blamed myself and forgave my parents' favoritism. Thinking about this, I took out my phone and scrolled through it. I opened a social media account. It was Irene's account. Every post showed her vibrant photos. Although we're twins, Irene had always been prettier than me. She was lively and cheerful, more likable than my quiet, introverted self. During family gatherings, relatives would always compare me with Irene. She would be wearing a beautiful dress, playing the violin, while I would be hiding in a corner, wearing a worn-out jumper. After all the comparisons, there was only one conclusion: we really didn't look like twins. Sometimes they would praise my academic performance. But my mom would hurriedly counter. If Irene wasn't ill, she might do even better. I opened Irene's latest post. It was several selfies taken in the classroom. As if unintentional, each photo had a boy in the background. It was Asher Gray. In the background, he was either sleeping with his head propped up, or absent-mindedly spinning his pen. In some photos, the boy's sharp gaze even looked directly at the camera. These moments were captured in Irene's lens, creating special portraits together. A sweet, cute girl and a handsome, rebellious boy. Just a few photos were enough to spark imagination. There were many familiar accounts commenting below. Asher seems to be stealing glances at you again, he must fancy you. Speaking of which, his ex-girlfriend looked quite similar to Irene. You two look perfect together, red heart. Waiting for Asher to confess. The author replied, "Oh, stop it, who would want to be with that player, I hate him the most." Accompanied by a cat emoji with hands on hips. I raised an eyebrow and put away my phone. Walking into a restaurant. I occasionally worked part-time here. After greeting the owner, I went to change into my work uniform. The supervisor directed me to serve a private room. I didn't expect Asher to be inside. The door was slightly ajar. Inside were Asher and one of his friends. From my angle, I could only see their tall figures from behind. I recognized him. It was Fred Jackson from Class 1. Fred opened a beer with one hand. "I heard the top student in your class likes you." I froze. They were talking about me. Fred leaned back, asking casually, "What do you think?" "Nothing much to think about." Asher was playing with a metal lighter, his lazy voice hitting my eardrums. "I'm not interested in these good students, besides, she seems like the clingy type." Hearing this, I still showed no reaction. I walked in. Asher was a bit stunned when he saw me. "Why are you here?" I picked up the bottle and poured some beer into his glass. In a flat tone, "Stalking you." Asher paused, leaned back, and looked at me somewhat helplessly. "Don't waste your time, we really won't work out." This seemed like genuine advice. I said "oh," walked to the other side, and poured beer into Fred's glass. Fred tilted his head, his flirtatious eyes looking at me with an ambiguous smile. "Miss, haven't we met before?" I smiled politely and said softly, "I don't think so, sir." "Can I have your contact information then?" Asher's knuckles tapped the table rhythmically. "Fred, that's enough." Fred raised his eyebrows at this but didn't say more. Before leaving, I glanced at the lighter in Asher's hand. Then I turned the no smoking sign to face him. The door closed. Fred couldn't help but laugh. Asher, your class's top student is quite interesting. Asher remained silent, staring at the sign for a while. His fingers twitched, and the lighter was thrown into the bin. Asher hasn't come to buy sausages for a week now. He really doesn't like me. We never talked at school anyway. Outside school, our only connection was a daily sausage. Now we've become complete strangers. During the break, we passed each other in the corridor. His expression was indifferent as I walked past with my water bottle. I entered the classroom through the back door. Back at my seat. Several students were gathered in front of me, their voices rather loud. Irene must be the flag bearer. She's the prettiest in our class. Oh, stop it. I won't be any flag bearer. Besides, Class 1 chooses based on grades, the girl protested in her soft voice. That's because their top student happens to be good-looking too. Our top student. They exchanged knowing glances in my direction. Irene fell silent at this point. I held my pen, writing down the answer to the question before me, my face expressionless. The head student had announced that each class needed to select one boy and one girl as flag bearers for the sports day. Asher had been the flag bearer in previous years. The chatter continued at the front. You and Asher would make such a gorgeous pair representing Class 2. Handsome guys should always be paired with beautiful girls. Don't let anyone spoil the view. That's when Asher walked into the classroom. Hey Asher, you'll be carrying the flag with Irene. My pen paused. Through the noise, the boy's lazy voice came from behind. Whatever. I glanced sideways. Asher grabbed his jacket and left again. The class erupted in teasing cheers. I nodded slightly. I saw Irene playfully hitting the loudest boy, her cheeks already turning pink. On the sports day. The classroom was buzzing with noise early in the morning. I was checking the purchase list for the sports day events. Dana Ward came over and noticed the sweets on my desk with surprise. I thought you didn't like sweets. I took out several pieces of chocolate from my pocket. With a smile, I said, they're for others. Who? Without looking up, I replied, for those who might need them. The boy sitting diagonally behind slowed down his pen spinning. He had heard the conversation. Asher stared at the girl's back with deep eyes. A moment later, he turned away. Pretending to be casual, though his ears were slightly red. During the march past, I stood at the end of the queue. As usual, Asher strode forward in his well-fitted suit. The young man slightly nodded, maintaining his characteristic arrogance. Irene wore the backless dress my mum bought, walking in small heels. She gracefully matched Asher's pace. The girl wore light makeup, her long hair floating in the warm sunlight. They were right, it was quite a sight. After dismissal, I put on my red vest and stood under the sunshade beside the running track. For the men's 2,000 meters, our class had registered Asher and Lehman. Asher was the first to cross the finish line. A crowd immediately surrounded him. Gray's amazing. Left second place far behind. Looks like Class 2 will take first place again this year. I glanced over. The tall young man stood among the crowd. With slight sweat on his forehead, barely out of breath. He took the bottled water handed to him and took a few sips. When Lehman Brown crossed the line, I walked past the crowd to meet him. He bent over, hands on knees, breathing heavily. Are you all right? Just as I was about to reach out, he collapsed against my shoulder, mumbling, so dizzy. Lehman was very thin, with limbs like bamboo poles. Originally forced to participate just to make up numbers. Dizzy? Do you have low blood sugar? I struggled to free my hand, took out a chocolate from my pocket, unwrapped it and put it in his mouth. Let's go to the medical room in a bit. Lehman recovered slightly and straightened up, but kept his hand on my shoulder. He hung his head, voice weak, thanks. While waiting for Lehman to recover, I suddenly sensed something and looked up, meeting a pair of cold eyes. Asher narrowed his eyes, his black pupils revealing no emotion. After taking Lehman to the medical room, I returned to the classroom alone. At the corridor corner, Asher was waiting. He stood with crossed arms, half leaning against the wall. Giving away the chocolate I gave you? I reminded him, you gave them to me. So? He blocked my way like a rogue. After a moment of silence, I asked, "Are you angry?" "Angry? What would I be angry about?" Finding it amusing, young Master Gray said sarcastically, "Give them to whoever you want, what's it got to do with me?" Then he turned and left. Fred came to my stall when I was about to close for the night. He smiled. "Hey, could I get a sausage?" I glanced at Asher standing behind him. He looked indifferent, staring intently at his phone with downcast eyes. The cold light from the screen illuminated the sharp features of the young man's face. I put the last sausage in a bag and handed it to Fred. Fred didn't take it. "Sorry, I forgot my wallet," he said with a grin, not looking sorry at all. "It's fine, it's on me." Fred dramatically covered his mouth. "Really? You're so kind." "Now you're being generous," Asher said, looking at me. He had put away his phone at some point, his dark eyes blending with the evening darkness. I remained silent, focusing on cleaning up. The atmosphere grew a bit awkward. Fred took a bite of his sausage, giving Asher a meaningful look. "Come on, Asher, let's go. She's closing up. You can come back tomorrow if you want to buy one." They left. As I was packing everything into boxes, Asher came back. The winter night was bitter cold, and the tall, elegant young man stood under the plane tree, watching me. I felt a bit dazed, remembering my first conversation with Asher. It was a spring evening with light rain, the air humid and sticky. He didn't have an umbrella and lingered at my stall. "We're in the same class, aren't we?" Such a casual question. After buying sausages from me for 2 months, it was his first question besides asking about prices. It stung a bit. I couldn't blame Asher though. He was a loner who wasn't close to anyone in class, especially someone on the fringes like me. "Yes, we are," I answered. "I'm Shelley Webb." Asher nodded. "Shelley like the poet?" After asking, he frowned slightly. He wasn't much of a talker. I looked into his eyes and corrected him. "No, just Shelley." "Shelley, how long are you going to space out?" The young man's irritated voice had an edge to it. My reminiscing was interrupted. My eyes refocused. I saw Asher's grumpy face. I hesitated before asking, "Did you come back to pay for your friend?" "Pay? Rubbish," he scoffed. The street was quiet now, with hardly anyone passing by. "Shelley, how come you've never treated me?" "Playing favorites?" I was a bit stunned. "You came back just to ask that?" Asher let out a cold snort but didn't deny it. I adjusted my woolen hat and took out a bag from my backpack. "Here, it's on me. You still have more?" I was going to feed it to the dogs. Asher's outstretched right hand froze midair. I could see the rose tattoo on his wrist. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you calling me a dog?" He was so sensitive. "No, you're human." I paused, then added, "Besides, dogs are quite lovely." Something in my words must have pleased him. Asher finally took the bag, muttering "oh" with reddening ears. I came home in the evening. Irene brought a piece of cake to my room. "Shelley, I saved this cake especially for you. Today was her 18th birthday." "Oh, it was mine too. Thanks." After putting down the cake, she didn't leave right away. She flipped through the books on my desk. "Shelley, can I borrow your maths notes? Mock exams coming up." Last time she took my English notes, they came back as just a few scraps of paper. She said they were accidentally torn. I pulled out my maths notes from the pile of books and handed them to her. Irene's smile faded. "Shelley, you're such a good actor." The English notes were gone. I sat in my chair, silently staring at the small piece of chocolate cake. During the summer holiday of year 8, Irene was chatting enthusiastically online with a boy from the neighboring school. When school started, I was cornered in the bathroom by several girls. The leader was that boy's girlfriend. That girl accused me of being a homewrecker. Irene had used my name for her online relationship. Rumors spread quickly. The entire year group learned about my despicable act of being a homewrecker. She looks innocent, but who knew she could be so disgusting? How desperate must she be to steal someone else's boyfriend? Makes me sick. What's the point of good grades when you have no morals? Insulting words and looks of disgust came from everywhere. I tried to explain and presented a complete chain of evidence. No one believed me. I gained another accusation of framing my own sister. Trying to prove my innocence was like falling into a bottomless pit with no way out. I took a week off school. My mom found out about this too. She said I was inherently cheap for seducing boys at such a young age. At that time, Irene was leaning against my bedroom doorway, wearing a smug smile. "Shelley, nobody likes you anyway. So it's better for everyone if you just disappear. A few harsh words won't kill you." She was so self-righteous, making light of everything. In year 11, by coincidence, I was assigned to the same class as Irene again. When I first joined the class, I made a couple of friends. Occasionally, some classmates would ask me for help with questions. I helped them earnestly. Irene couldn't stand it. She told the class that her sister despised students with poor grades. She said it jokingly, as if making a casual remark. No one came to ask me questions anymore. But at least, except for her friends, others just treated me like I was invisible. After all, no one would easily develop genuine hatred for someone without reason. Early the next morning, Lehman placed a bottle of milk on my desk. He clasped his hands together. "Thank you, Shelley, for saving my life yesterday." I glanced at the list and smiled. "You're welcome. Good luck with the high jump today." "Excuse me," came a familiar cold voice. Asher pushed past Lehman and walked by my side. "Call Irene and ask her when she's coming back," my mom said from the sofa, where she was wearing a face mask. "Got it." I put the bowl in the sink, wiped my hands, and took out my phone. Irene had gone to a class party after the sports day. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Mom's asking when you'll be back." There was some noise in the background. Irene lowered her voice. "I'll be back later. Don't call again unless it's important." "Irene, are you going to do the toast with Asher or not?" An unfamiliar teasing voice came through the speaker. "Who wants to toast with that git?" Irene snapped. The call ended. I stared at the dark phone screen for a long while. Asher, did they mean Asher Gray? Have you heard? Asher got into a fight yesterday. The form teacher called him in first thing this morning. Who hasn't heard? They say he fought over that pretty girl from year 11. I could hear the jumbled gossip before even entering the classroom that morning. "Asher is just a player who goes after pretty girls," came Irene's voice, sounding rather indignant. "All the pretty girls are being chased by pigs. Wonder what my sister sees in him." "Don't worry, your sister isn't pretty enough for Asher to notice." The topic shifted to me. After morning reading, I carried the collected exercise books to the staff room. A pretty girl stood at the office door, her eyes slightly red. She must be the year 11 beauty everyone was talking about. She held a box of biscuits, craning her neck to look inside. I slipped past her into the room. The form teacher wasn't there. Asher was standing against the wall. He was being punished but maintained a lazy posture with his hands in his pockets. He wasn't wearing his uniform. His black windbreaker was zipped up to the top, revealing only his sharp eyes and high bridge nose. A black tattoo peeked out from his right wrist. He looked utterly casual and careless. Seeing me, he straightened up, raising an eyebrow. "Why weren't you at your usual spot last night?" I put the exercise books on the desk. Looking at him without emotion, I noticed a cut on his brow bone with a plaster haphazardly stuck over it. "I won't be there anymore." He frowned. "Why not?" "No reason." Asher pressed his tongue against his cheek, laughing sarcastically. "Shelley, could your attitude towards me get any worse?" I turned to leave. "Stop right there." He tried to stop me. "Asher." The girl's delicate fingers caught his jacket, her eyes brimming with tears. He stopped in his tracks. I ran away. Behind me, I heard the boy's irritated voice. "How many times do I have to tell you? I fought them because I already had beef with them, not because I fancy you. And I don't want your bloody biscuits." Asher is giving me the cold shoulder. It's entirely one-sided. During lab class, he was the last one to arrive. The only empty seat was next to me. Asher made a complete circuit of the room, then walked out with an annoyed expression. He'd rather skip class than sit beside me. He must be really upset. But why? Is it because I stopped running the stall? While Asher avoids me, Fred Jackson keeps showing up every few days. Whenever we meet at school, Fred greets me with a smile. And every time Asher stands behind him, his face is dark as thunder. On Christmas Eve, the music was blasting across the school field. I was alone in the dressing room, counting and organizing the performance costumes. The door opened, and Fred walked in. He was wearing a gray suit that accentuated his broad shoulders and slim waist, making him look even more youthfully striking than usual. "Shelley, could you help me with my tie? I need to go on stage soon." He held out a gray tie, dangling it in front of me. I don't know how. I continued counting the costumes without looking up. Besides, Class 1's dressing room is next door. It's simple, just like tying a school tie. Fred sat down in the chair beside me, deliberately ignoring my last comment. I finally looked up at him. "Can't you tie your own school tie?" "No, actually. I had private tutors at home during primary school." Annoying rich kid. After a moment's thought, I took the tie. I made a quick knot in the air. "Got it now? That's rather half-hearted. Couldn't you just tie it for me properly?" Fred stood up anxiously. Then he kicked the nearby cabinet. He sucked in a sharp breath and fell silent. I struggled to hide my smile. "Does it hurt?" "No." He stamped his foot. Such a tough guy. Just then, the door opened again. It was Asher. Fred glanced sideways and gave a cheeky whistle. Speaking of tough guys. Asher crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Fred, do you have a death wish?" "Not really." Fred left, but not before throwing me a flirtatious wink. "Shelley, help me with my tie another time?" The door opened and closed, and the dressing room fell quiet again. The makeup mirror reflected the boy's cold expression. He stood there, his eyes fixed on me and Fred's abandoned tie in my hands. That jarring gray. He gave a cold laugh. "How helpful you are, Shelley, even assisting Class 1 now." I placed the tie carelessly on the table. "I didn't tie it for him." "Does it matter?" His lips twisted sarcastically. "You and Fred seem to be getting quite close." "What, do you fancy him now?" "Asher, are you angry?" I asked him. This time, he neither denied it nor flew into a rage. Asher just silently stared at me. I lowered my eyes and let out a soft sigh. "What happened to your hand?" "Been fighting again?" There was a thin scar on the boy's pale hand. "None of your business," he said coldly, turning his head away. "It is my business." I gently held his hand and pulled a plaster from my pocket. Asher didn't resist, letting his eyelids droop lazily as I tended to him. After applying the plaster, I kept hold of his hand. My fingertip gently brushed over the plaster. "Please stop getting hurt. It makes me sad." Asher's dark pupils reflected my image. "Shelley." His Adam's apple bobbed. "Now you're the one flirting with me." "Yes." I looked up at him frankly. "So, did it work?" Asher's eyes cooled as he studied me for a long moment. "I accept." My expression froze. "Accept what?" "Your pursuit." As he spoke, a jumble of footsteps sounded outside, accompanied by scattered voices. "Time for rehearsal, get to the dressing rooms and change. Hurry up, the teacher's waiting." I opened the door and walked out. The setting sun was golden as I walked slowly forward in its fading light. Asher caught up in a few steps. We walked side by side in silence for a while. The melodious sound of a violin began to play. It was Irene rehearsing on the stage nearby. Asher grabbed my wrist, and we stopped under an oak tree. "Want me to repeat myself?" The dense leaves concealed the complexity in the boy's eyes. I twisted my wrist to hold his hand instead. "Dating is fine, but with 3 conditions." Asher frowned. "What conditions?" "First, we keep it private." "Why?" For Asher, relationships had always been about making grand public statements. We're still in school. A reasonable enough excuse. Asher reluctantly agreed. Second, no cheating. Obviously. His tone was harsh. What the hell do you take me for? I stayed silent, watching him without emotion. Damn. He was quite angry. I'd rather get hit by a car than cheat. No need to be so dramatic. Breaking up would be enough, I won't make a fuss. I mean what I say. He interlaced our fingers, snorting. What's the third? Third. I paused, letting out a soft breath. After we break up, we go our separate ways, become strangers. I wanted him to know I'd be easy to get rid of. But Asher's face darkened. His grip on my hand gradually tightened. He laughed bitterly, gritting his teeth. Shelley, we haven't even started dating and you're already thinking about breaking up? I pressed my lips together and explained, I just like to think ahead. Then why not think about us getting married? He blurted out. A cold wind blew, rustling the leaves. Then Asher was stunned, and so was I. The floodlights had been turned on at the main field. A few classes were scattered across the audience seats. No one noticed us in our corner. We hid under the tree, at the edge of the bustling crowd. Hearts beating wildly. After what felt like forever. I pulled my hand away. Forget it then. He clicked his tongue in frustration. Wait. I looked at him. After 2 seconds of silence, he muttered a curse. Then he pulled out a cigarette pack from his pocket. Quickly took out a cigarette and put it between his lips. His other hand held a lighter. With a click, the blue-purple flame touched the cigarette tip. Asher. I called him. He paused, looking down at me. We stared at each other in silence. The crimson light at the corner of his eye reflected in the boy's pupils. He took the cigarette from his mouth. A small, crisp crushing sound. The cigarette's capsule slowly crumbled between the boy's fingers. Through gritted teeth, he emphasized each word. Shelley Webb, you'd better genuinely like me. After the party ended, I sat in the passenger seat of Frank Carter's car. Irene and my mom were sitting in the back, excitedly discussing the photos they had just taken. They came to watch Irene's performance. I curled up in the passenger seat, watching the night view through the window. Frank glanced at me while driving. Shelley, where were you today? Didn't see you around. She was on the backstage crew, Irene answered for me. My mom, scrolling through her phone, snorted, born to be a servant, that one. At home, I went to my room. After showering, I sat at my desk solving math problems. The half-closed door was knocked and opened. Frank entered with a plate of fruit. Shelley, dear, have some fruit and get to bed early. It's not good to stay up late. He patted my hand. I pulled away from his touch and looked up, meeting his seemingly kind smile. I forced a slight smile. Thank you, Frank. After he left, I dumped all the fruit into the bin. Then, standing over it, I started retching uncontrollably. Frank Carter is my stepfather. I was 12 when I caught him cheating. He had his arm around a strange woman's waist as they entered a hotel. That evening at dinner, I told everything I'd seen. I was bewildered when the clothes hanger came down on me along with the abuse. My mom swung the hanger at me repeatedly. She screamed while hitting me. I'll teach you to tell such lies. You ungrateful little brat. I'll beat some sense into you. Making up stories about your dad, how did I end up with such a demon child? Frank sat there, watching coldly. He only offered a casual. That's enough. She's just a child who needs to learn her lesson. I curled up on the floor, crying until my throat was raw. Why wouldn't they believe me? When Mom got tired, she checked the time and rushed out to pick up Irene from dance class. I lay there on the floor as Frank towered over me. He showed his yellow teeth, his wrinkles bunching up in a nauseating smile. He said, Shelley, dear, Dad won't blame you this time. But don't break Dad's heart like this again. All men are like this, you'll understand when you're older. The phone on the table buzzed twice. I grabbed a tissue to wipe my hands. It was Asher calling. I answered. Neither of us spoke. I listened to the faint static on the other end. The lump in my throat slowly subsided. After a brief silence, I spoke first. Asher, today is December 24th. Yes, it's the first day of our relationship. His voice was clear and pure. Shelley. He called my name. Merry Christmas. The next second, there were several muffled sounds outside the window. I looked out. Brilliant fireworks burst in the night sky. They scattered, turning into streams of light. December 25th, midnight. I touched the glass window, reaching out to the fireworks in the distance. Asher, Merry Christmas. Dating Asher wasn't quite what I'd imagined. In the dim, empty classroom, the heavy curtains blocked out all the light. The young man held my waist, his voice hoarse. Shelley, you dare go back on your word? I've quit smoking for a month, and you want to brush me off after 10 minutes? I bit my lip, still feeling the warmth of his breath lingering there. He was being completely unreasonable. Class is about to start. He remained silent. In the darkness, his warm palm caressed the nape of my neck. Our breaths mingled. And so another 10 minutes passed. Asher started spending more time in class. He sat in the back row, a lollipop between his lips. When I walked past, he'd catch my hand and gently tickle my palm. A fleeting touch. Asher would then lean back, eyes half closed, admiring my fleshed ear tips. He never tired of playing these little games. It was weekend, and I was reading in a coffee shop. Asher was sitting beside me, playing games on his phone. After a while, he lifted his chin slightly and made a soft sound. I took a chocolate from the table, unwrapped it, and held it to his mouth. He glanced at it while his fingers kept tapping the screen. Too ugly, I won't eat it. I put that chocolate in my mouth and picked a prettier one for him. When my eyes got tired from reading, I looked out the window. Someone was taking selfies outside. What are you looking at? Asher turned off his phone and followed my gaze. In the sunlight, a tall, beautiful girl was holding her phone up. I looked away. That's your ex-girlfriend. He frowned, stopped looking at the girl, and stared straight at me. Then he reached out to rub my earlobe, his eyes dark and unreadable. After a moment of silence, he said calmly, "Actually, I barely knew them. They were all actresses I hired to prevent my father from arranging a marriage for me." He candidly revealed this secret. I took a sip of my drink and glanced at him. All beautiful actresses? Asher froze for a moment before coming back to his senses. His handsome face turned slightly red, showing rare awkwardness. Fred said hiring beautiful ones would make me look more like an idle playboy. He paused before continuing in a light tone, "My father doesn't like me much. Last year, a girl took a fancy to me. Her family was richer than mine, and my father couldn't wait to marry me off." After saying this, he seemed to find it absurd and laughed briefly before stopping. After a moment of quiet, even his breathing became lighter. "Shelley, I don't like having my life arranged for me. And I don't want to marry someone I don't love. So you deliberately ruined your reputation?" I turned a page and commented, "How childish." He smiled, seeming relieved, gently touching the tip of my ear. But it worked. Now all those wealthy heiresses avoid me like the plague. I kept my eyes down without speaking, opening my palm where Asher had just written "Property of Asher Gray." The handwriting was bold and sharp, just like him. Asher couldn't bear my silence. He forcefully grabbed my hand, covering the writing on my palm. He looked at me anxiously, very uncertain. "Really, I never even touched their hands, you can ask them." I bit my tongue slightly and smiled at him. I know. I had known all along. I even knew that after each performance, he would pay each actress a handsome sum. In other words, apart from annoying Irene. I initially approached him for that payment too. So no matter what, I had never had good intentions from the start. He shouldn't have told me these things. I didn't want to be that special someone. Winter break. The snow-covered mountains, dressed in white, seemed to paint the world in a single color. I stood in the vast whiteness, feeling strange. Asher put earmuffs on me. "Silly, aren't you cold?" He held me in his arms. Asher said he came to see the snow every year. But this year he wanted me to accompany him. So we took a plane, traveling miles across cities. I saw snow for the first time in my life. We stayed at a hotel halfway up the mountain. Perhaps due to the change in environment, I developed a low fever in the afternoon. Nothing serious. After Asher made me some medicine, I shooed him away. I took a nap. When I woke up, it was already sunset. I checked my temperature, the fever had broken. I walked to the window. In the dusk, the silhouettes of distant peaks overlapped. The snowy mountains merged with the dim sky, mist settling around the mountainside. I sat quietly by the bed, watching. Time passed. There was a knock at the door. I got up to answer it. Asher stood at the doorway. "I got you some oysters, Rockefeller, just heated them up." He lifted the box in his hand, his voice slightly hoarse. I froze. "Oysters, Rockefeller?" My gaze dropped to the yellow box he was holding. I think I'd mentioned it when I was feverish. But were there even any restaurants around here serving that? The hotel's heating was working well, and Asher wore just a black hoodie. The corners of his eyes and nose were red, his damp fringe falling softly across his brows. "Where did you buy this?" "There's a restaurant at the foot of the mountain." I frowned. Didn't the guide say there were no cars running this afternoon? I walked. Such a casual response. Of course he did. The fever's gone now. I looked at him, my tone almost cold. "Asher, I wasn't that desperate for it." "Rather ungrateful of me." Asher lowered his eyelashes, still carrying the winter chill. "It's our first trip together, and you got sick." "I feel responsible, all right?" He was so matter-of-fact about it. After a 2-second silence, I took the box from his hands. "Shelley, you're so heartless." He pinched my cheek. His cold fingers made me shiver. But I didn't pull away. Asher's smile deepened. I stood on tiptoe and pressed my hot water bottle against his neck. "Expressionless," I said, "serve you right if you freeze." His eyes crinkled with amusement as he leaned down. "My lips are cold, give me a kiss." The day before we left, we walked into a souvenir shop. "I want this one, buy it for me," said Asher, pointing to a wooden box on the shelf. Inside lay a pair of silver rings. The design was simple, with the shape of the snowy mountain beneath our feet engraved on the bands. I gave Asher a complex look, taking in his designer clothes. Then glanced at the price tag. £66, 33 each. I'd heard there was a hierarchy even among the elite. Jewelry was supposed to be a symbol of status. Wasn't this a bit too cheap for his standard? I hesitated before suggesting, "Should we look at something else?" Asher wasn't pleased. "Shelley, whose birthday is it, mine or yours?" "Fair enough, birthday boy gets his way." I paid without further protest. As we left the shop, light snow began falling on our heads. Asher slipped the thinner ring onto my right hand, putting his on his left. When our fingers intertwined, the two rings clinked together. In the falling snow, he held my hand as we walked slowly forward. "Asher." He stopped. "Happy 18th birthday." He paused, then let out a soft laugh. "Can't the clever girl say something more romantic?" I lowered my eyes, half my face buried in my scarf. "Asher, I hope everything you want in life comes easily to you." The plane landed the following evening. Asher drove me home. After arriving, I didn't go out again. My mom and Frank took Irene on a trip to the north this year. Nobody was home. After showering that night, I checked my phone. Asher had posted on Instagram a grid of 9 photos showing snowy mountain landscapes. The middle one was our shadow selfie in the snow. The caption was rather sentimental, "Stay with me year after year." Within half an hour, Irene updated her social media account, also with snow photos. Her caption read, "By your side dawn to dusk." Quite symmetrical with Asher's post. The comments were as expected. Could this be a relationship announcement? Speaking of which, Asher's single lately. Could he be pursuing our blogger? "I'm shipping this." Irene didn't reply to any comments but pinned her own. "Took these myself." Someone else's photos were awful, and he still posted them on Instagram. While I was reading, a call came through. I answered. Asher's lazy voice came through. Want to go out tomorrow? I can't, haven't finished my practice papers, I declined politely. Silence on the other end for a moment. Shelley, who's more important, me or the practice papers? The practice papers. The person on the other end wasn't angry, just chuckled softly. So I'm second? I touched my ear, mumbling a vague M. What was that? Asher drawled, sounding languid. Couldn't hear you. There's also the vocabulary book, error collection, and past papers, I said. You're fifth. Well, at least I made the top 5, he laughed carelessly. So unfair, baby, you're number 1 in my heart. He loved saying these sweet things, without any hint of embarrassment. I coughed lightly, feeling my cheeks heat up. I'm tired. After hanging up, I lay in bed with a headache. Is this what dating is always like? It's too mushy. The next evening, while I was doing practice questions, Asher messaged me again. He sent several landscape photos from his mountain hike today. I played his voice message. His clean, crisp voice mixed with wind noise. The mountain was so crowded today, someone stepped on my foot. I took the cable car up in the end. The view was decent, we should come together sometime. Me, sure, lovely photos. After completing 2 sets of papers, I checked my phone. Asher hadn't replied. I pressed my lips together and played the voice message again. Listened twice. Then I typed, "How's your foot?" He replied instantly. A bit sore. I put down my phone and rubbed my temples wearily. Dating is harder than exams. Asher is harder to handle than complicated questions. He's too clingy, I'm not used to it. Fortunately, the Christmas holiday would soon be over. When the new term started, all entertainment activities for year 13 were suspended. The atmosphere in the classroom was heavy with exam preparation. Everyone was like a soldier ready for battle, on high alert. Even Irene's friends stopped gossiping about me. Only Asher remained unchanged, still as clingy as ever. During the brief breaks in year 13, he would set our dates in quiet coffee shops or libraries. While I did my homework, he would sit quietly beside me, drawing little figures. Afterwards, he would give me these drawings. Clingy but considerate. Time passed quickly under the pressure. On the day of A-levels. It was drizzling. Asher walked in front of me with an umbrella. Moving quickly. After walking for a while, he stopped and closed the umbrella. I caught up in a few steps, holding the umbrella high to shield him from the rain. You'll catch a cold. Don't be angry, that boy just asked me 2 questions about the exam. I explained patiently. Asher took the umbrella with a cold face. He held my hand and walked forward. We entered a tattoo parlor at the corner. The shop was empty. Beardy owns this shop, Asher introduced while taking off his jacket. The man with a full beard. Beardy seemed to have been expecting us and nodded politely at me. I scanned the shop's decor before carefully looking at Asher. Are you getting a tattoo? Asher lounged lazily on the leather sofa, flipping through a design book. Still sulking, he glanced at me. Why else would I bring you here? I remained silent. After my strong objection, Asher finally gave up on tattooing my name. Instead, he chose a Greek tattoo. Greek for sweet tooth. On the inside of his left wrist. When Beardy started disinfecting the skin, Asher wrapped his other arm around my waist. Whimpering, he buried his face in my stomach. Too scared to look. I stroked his hair soothingly. It's all right. The young apprentice stood nearby, looking confused. Ash, last time weren't you totally fine with? Ahem. Beardy suddenly coughed, cutting off the apprentice. Come upstairs with me to get the ink. Beardy gave him a meaningful look. Only Asher and I were left in the shop. I blinked slowly, still processing. Before I could think it through, the grip on my waist suddenly tightened. Shelley, what if it hurts too much? His voice trembled. Under the warm yellow light, the row of silver needles on the workbench gleamed coldly. My chest felt tight. It must hurt a lot. I gripped my fingers tightly and pulled out a toffee from my pocket. Unwrapping it, I said softly, "Have some candy, I brought lots. I'll give you one whenever it hurts." Asher put the candy in his mouth and hugged me tighter, tilting his head. He nuzzled left and right, letting out a muffled laugh. "Can I bite you if it hurts?" I replied, "You can bite yourself." It was the day of our graduation dinner. The private dining room at the restaurant was filled with noisy chatter. I sat in the corner. A-levels were like a wall of fire. Once you cross it, everyone has a chance to be reborn. After 2 weeks apart, everyone in the class looked different. Hair dyed in various colors, trendy outfits, faces showing relief. I went to the bathroom. In the stall, I texted Asher to apologize. He was angry because I wouldn't sit with him. In the empty hallway, he suppressed his anger. Through gritted teeth, he said, "Shelley Webb, you still don't want to go public. What's your excuse this time?" I remained silent. Asher hated my silence the most. So shortly after the food arrived, he left abruptly. Asher didn't reply to me. "Hey, have you noticed how pretty Shelley's become?" "Must be the makeup." "No, you're so superficial, it's the power of love." "I saw her with Asher at the shopping center the other day." "Really? Are you sure you didn't see wrong?" "Definitely not, they were holding hands." The gossip outside gradually faded. I pushed open the door. Standing at the sink, looking at the person in the mirror. Round eyes, light makeup, the freckles on my cheeks had faded a bit. Now I could see some resemblance between Irene and me in our features. After the graduation dinner, everyone waited outside the restaurant. Asher had returned at some point. Standing at the edge of the crowd, I turned back to look at him. The tall, straight-backed young man had his head down, arms crossed, leaning against a pillar alone. I shuffled towards him. But before I could get close, someone beat me to it. Irene stood before him, chin raised. "Asher, which city's university did you apply to? Your grades are poor, I suppose I could help you with some advice." The girl's posture was bold, with a hint of awkward shyness. Asher slowly lifted his eyelids, stared at her for 2 seconds. Then coldly said, "None of your bloody business." The disgust in his voice was obvious. Irene's smile faltered. She maintained her composure. "I'm just concerned about struggling students, what's with the attitude?" I clenched my jaw and looked away. As I tried to retreat, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. "Shelley." I turned around, it was Lehman. I frowned, "What is it?" The young boy stood before me, awkwardly scratching his head. "I've called a car, can I give you a lift home?" I was startled. His voice wasn't quiet, and several people nearby heard. Suddenly, teasing voices erupted. "Ooh, Lehman, didn't see that coming. Why just Shelley? Aren't we good enough? I thought something was up during sports day, but you kept denying it." Lehman's face reddened. "Come on, stop it, I'm just going the same way." I licked my lips, but before I could speak, an arm suddenly wrapped around my waist. The familiar pressure made me shiver. In an instant, Lehman's expression froze. The surrounding chatter died down. In the awkward atmosphere, Asher's hand on my waist gradually tightened. "Sorry, mate," he smiled, though his voice was ice cold. "I can take my girlfriend home myself." Everyone stared wide-eyed at each other, no one daring to speak. In the suffocating silence, Asher let out a laugh. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers towards the darkness. A roaring engine approached. A black Range Rover came closer and stopped in front of the crowd. Everyone finally snapped back to reality. Surprised voices broke out. "Bloody hell, I told you I wasn't seeing things." "Mental, Asher just called Shelley his girlfriend, am I dreaming? Wasn't he supposed to be dating Irene?" Irene stood in the crowd, face pale. Finally, under everyone's shocked gazes, Asher firmly guided me into the car. Before getting in, I looked back. Irene stood there in her white dress. She glared at me venomously, her beautiful features almost distorted. At the foot of the old apartment building, Asher pinned me against a tree, holding my chin as he kissed me. His movements were fierce, the punishing kiss leaving me breathless. I wanted to bite him but hesitated, trembling as I touched his face. Such a small gesture seemed to please him. Asher finally let me go. Under the moonlight, we held each other. The sound of crickets mixed with heavy breathing. After a while, I pushed him away. You shouldn't have called me your girlfriend. Asher's face darkened like storm clouds. So I should have watched you get into another man's car? I wouldn't have gotten in his car. Such words clearly weren't enough to appease Asher. Shelley. He looked at me, emotions churning in his eyes. Am I being too lenient with you? I turned away. You always do whatever you want. Yes, I do whatever I want. Asher laughed coldly. In your eyes, I'm just a playboy. You're ashamed to date me, aren't you, Shelley? It's not like that. I want to talk this through reasonably. His tone turned nasty. To hell with reason. Who's being reasonable here? Do I look like someone who's reasonable? I couldn't argue with him. Taking a deep breath, my throat dry. Think what you want then. The summer night's wind was hot and sticky. The slim young man stood before me, the corners of his eyes red. You won't even properly argue. Shelley, you just love seeing me act like a madman. We parted on bad terms. After Asher left, I sat on the estate's bench for a long time before going upstairs. My mom was sitting in the living room. She gave me a sideways glance. I had a bad feeling. Walking to my room. Sure enough, it was chaos. Irene was still pulling at my bed canopy. Shelley, I lost something. Thought I'd look here. I entered and closed the door behind me, shutting out the noise. Irene dropped her fake expression. She came over and yanked the pearl hair clip from my head. Sneering, this is from Asher, right? I knew you'd never buy something like this. She glared at me venomously. I shrugged, nonchalant, if you like it, you can have it. Irene's expression instantly twisted. You witch! What tricks did you use to make Asher notice you? I watched her lose control in anger. Calmly said, what if I said it was because of your diary? I knew it! I knew it! Irene lost all reason, sweeping everything off my desk onto the floor. If it weren't for the diary, he would never have noticed you. You witch, you deceived him. She seemed to have forgotten who had pinned the diary incident on me. I moved out of my family home. Found a job with accommodation and meals included. Asher hadn't come to see me for over 2 weeks. Occasionally I'd catch glimpses of him in Fred's WhatsApp status. Golf courses, high-end bars, luxury yachts. Asher's life was lavishly extravagant. A world I couldn't touch even if I worked my whole life. Shelley, would you never message me if I didn't message you first? Asher's text came while I was standing outside the Test F exam center. Usually, I'm the one who always makes up with him. Yet when he feels wronged, he turns everything upside down like this. After the exam, I walked out. A black SUV was parked outside. Asher was leaning against the car door. He wore a black t-shirt, his familiar cold demeanor evident in his expression. Checking my phone, I realized he must have seen my location update on WhatsApp. One hand in his pocket, the other holding an unlit cigarette between his fingers. He watched me approach with a detached expression. Face to face, neither of us spoke. I licked my dry lips, breaking the silence. Given up quitting smoking? He laughed coldly, waving the cigarette, not like I need to kiss you anymore. I froze, unconsciously gripping my bag strap tighter. So, I blinked, are you breaking up with me? Asher frowned. Why so many questions? Do I look like I've got time to waste? Sorry. His gaze drifted past me, looking at other students entering and leaving the gates. Why are you taking Test F? My fingers trembled slightly. Just for fun. Asher stared at me for a while but didn't press further. I got into his car. He didn't start driving immediately. His fingers tapped the steering wheel. Shelley, shall I teach you how to make up properly? I paused halfway through pulling my seatbelt, looking at him confused. Come kiss me, he said. Fine. My face heated up. In the cramped passenger seat, I awkwardly leaned towards him. Asher cooperatively turned his head. But just as our breaths mingled, he dodged. The kiss landed on his neck, an inch right of his sharp Adam's apple. I froze. Instantly, Asher's breathing became uneven. The temperature in the car seemed to rise. I suddenly came to my senses and pulled back. Asher closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, his dark pupils were clouded with something intense. "That's enough." I stiffly looked away. Without a word, he got out of the car. Moments later, the passenger door opened from outside. Light flooded in. I looked up, confused. Asher towered over me. He leaned in, one hand gripping my wrist. The next second, his heated kiss landed on my neck. Half my body went numb, my ears buzzing. My heart trembled. A different sensation entirely. "Asher." I gasped, "That tickles." He finally released me. The passenger door closed again. I looked in the rearview mirror at the small red mark on my neck. Asher sat back in the driver's seat. Meeting my eyes in the mirror, he raised an eyebrow. Tit for tat. And just like that, Asher and I made up. He drove me home. I didn't tell him I'd moved out. The car stopped at the estate entrance. After his car disappeared, I slowly walked in the opposite direction. The next day, Asher took me to the amusement park. In the theme shop, he dressed me up in fluffy accessories. Bunny ears on my head, a teddy bear bag across my body, and 2 plush squirrels in my arms. Ignoring my protesting looks, Asher eagerly took photos. While paying, he suddenly paused. His gaze fixed on something on the shelf, growing intense. It was a fluffy choker with a silver bell pendant, seemingly matching the bunny ears on my head. I coughed, the spot on my neck growing warm again. "That's not happening." He looked away, clicking his tongue. Stingy Shelley. After reconciling, Asher became even more clingy. I felt increasingly out of my depth. Thankfully, my university term started early. On the first day of university, Asher drove me to campus. At the entrance of the dormitory building, he held me close, burying his face in my neck. He seemed upset. "This is annoying. I'll buy a flat, come live with me." I patted his back. "It's all right, our university is nearby, we can still see each other often." After saying goodbye to Asher, I went upstairs and bumped into Irene. What rotten luck she got into the same university. She gave me a sinister look. "Shelley, don't get too comfortable. I'll make sure Asher knows what kind of person you really are." I nodded. "Fine, we'll see about that." The military training for freshmen came very soon. The summer heat was stifling, with cicadas chirping loudly. Standing on the field, it felt like my lungs were on fire. When Asher came, I was standing at attention. He wore a plain black t-shirt and a baseball cap. He stood at the corner of the field with his arms crossed, looking fresh and clean. Like a cold north wind. Bringing a chill. After we were dismissed, I ran over to him. "Have you been waiting long?" "Yes, and it's bloody hot." He took my half-empty water bottle and naturally took a couple sips. I turned on my mini fan for him. "Thought you weren't coming?" He didn't answer, just drooped his head and leaned listlessly on my shoulder. It was clearly my military training, yet he looked exhausted. He seemed thinner too. "I've bought the flat, you should move out of the dorm soon," he said. The summer heat surged again, making me irritable. I pushed him away. Looking at him coldly, "Asher, I told you this won't work." Seeing my reaction, Asher's expression turned cold too. "Why won't it work? Every time I want to see you, you're either busy with this or that. Always something to do, always an excuse to refuse. We haven't met once this week." He grew more angry as he spoke, gritting his teeth. "Shelley, you just don't want to see me, do you?" He was right. The assembly whistle blew. I adjusted my cap. "I'm not moving out." After saying that, I ran off. When I got back to the formation, I looked through the crowd. Asher was gone. My fingers slowly curled into fists. This couldn't continue. Back in my dorm, I did the calculations. The luxury items Asher had given me could sell for quite a bit. Enough for me to make a choice. After that day, I didn't seek out Asher. He didn't come looking for me either. From his social media, it seemed he had started a small company, traveling everywhere for business. 2 weeks later on a chilly autumn night, Asher's location showed he was back in City B. How long are you going to be angry? I took a breath looking at the message. Typed back. Asher, you haven't apologized. He replied quickly. Asher, fine, where are you? At the noodle shop. With who? Classmates. Boys or girls? I glanced at my roommate beside me. Replied, boys. I was deliberately provoking him. The typing indicator appeared for a long time. Shelley Webb, you've got some nerve. I turned off my phone and focused on eating. But I didn't expect him to arrive so quickly. Just as my two roommates and I left the shop, we ran into Asher. His black motorcycle was parked behind him as he took off his helmet. The early autumn chill clung to him. He held his helmet, giving me a cold look. The lie was exposed. My two roommates, holding hands, tactfully headed back to campus. Trying to make me angry? Asher came closer, reaching for my hand. I dodged, my sleeve brushing against his knuckles. His fingers curled slightly, rubbing where we'd touched. We stood at an awkward distance. He withdrew his hand, raising an eyebrow slightly. You really don't want to live together that much? Asher, that's not the main issue here. Of course Asher knew that wasn't the main issue, but he just wanted me to deny this point. What he cared about most. Fine, we don't have to live together. Asher pressed his tongue against his cheek, his tone flat. I bought 2 flats, we can be neighbors, keep our distance. I was quiet for a moment, lowering my eyes. Asher, let's break up. The neon lights from the shops behind flickered, on and off. There wasn't the explosion of anger I'd expected. Asher's dark eyes studied me. Why? I licked my lips. You're too controlling, always doing whatever you want without considering my feelings. Look at me, he lifted his chin, continue. Looking into his eyes. My resolve weakened. I swallowed. Your temper is, a bit, difficult. I'm always catering to your moods. I'm tired. At this, Asher's expression finally changed. His thick black lashes trembled, hair falling forward. I'll change. I was stunned for a moment, then shook my head. You can't change, you haven't even properly quit smoking. I can. He pulled out a new pack of cigarettes and a lighter from his pocket. Raised his arm and threw them all in the nearby bin. I can change. He looked back at me, the corners of his eyes tinged red. I'd never seen Asher like this before. Dejected, defeated, like a cracked glass doll. His back hunched as he carefully held onto the edge of my coat. I can change, Shelley, don't leave me, please. We didn't break up successfully. We got back together, and I somewhat regret it. Asher's small company has been quite busy. After that night, he stopped pestering me to meet. Instead, he keeps sending me lots of messages. Baby, I closed a big deal yesterday. Going to make good money. Are you busy lately? My friend opened a new restaurant, I think you'd like the food there. He's beating around the bush. He wants to see me. But he's trying to be considerate. He's learning to be gentle, though rather clumsily. I put down my phone and let out a heavy sigh. Last week, Asher's mother came to see me. I met that elegant, dignified lady. Our conversation was fairly pleasant. The money she offered was substantial, impossible to refuse. It gave me more options. So, I accepted the card. On the weekend, I invited Asher for dinner. I sat alone in the private dining room. Ordered several of Asher's favorite dishes, setting up quite a spread. But unexpectedly, Irene arrived first. Shelley, you knew that diary was mine, you knew I was the one who liked Asher. What did I do wrong for you to treat me like this? Irene threw her bag on the floor as she entered. Tears streaming down her face as she accused me. The water in my glass trembled. I silently watched her performance. 2 seconds later, I suddenly laughed. Because I hate you, Irene. Is it wrong for me to want revenge? You were the one who pinned that diary on me. I just went along with it. Irene's expression faltered for a moment. But no matter what, Asher is innocent. Still so good at deflecting. I propped my head up with one hand, speaking airily, so what? Asher's rich, and he's decent looking. Just having some fun, no loss there. The moment those last words landed, the door was yanked open with a bang. Asher! Irene called out. Even though I'd anticipated it, my heart still skipped a beat. Asher stood in the doorway, radiating cold fury, his face dark with anger. No one knew how much he'd heard. Irene rushed to Asher's side. Asher, I told you Shelley was deceiving you, it was all to get revenge on me. Even though she's my sister, I really couldn't bear to watch you being deceived. And I truly like you, Irene's face flushed. Get out. What? Irene's expression froze. Asher closed his eyes briefly, his hand clenched into a fist at his side. His right hand held a bouquet of roses, presumably meant for me. He repeated word by word, I said get out. Irene ran out crying. The private room fell silent. I remained seated. Asher stood behind me. I couldn't see him, but I could feel his cold gaze, almost tangible, as if it could grip my throat. I lowered my eyes, reaching for the water glass on the table. Trying to bring it to my lips, I realized my hand was shaking uncontrollably. Most of the water spilled. In the oppressive silence, something seemed to be gradually crumbling. Asher sat down beside me. On the table lay cigarettes and a lighter. And a small pendant. It was a gift from Asher, he said he wore it as a child. And hoped it would keep me safe and healthy. Asher looked at these items before him, letting out a brief, harsh laugh. My intention couldn't have been clearer. He picked up the cigarette pack, tearing open the wrapper. His movements were uninterrupted. The metal lighter clicked several times before successfully lighting the cigarette. The crimson glow flickered. He smoked fiercely. The smoke swirled harshly through his lungs before he exhaled a thin white mist. The haze blurred his hard features and reddened eyes. I lowered my gaze. I saw the elegantly wrapped roses he'd brought, now carelessly thrown on the floor. Red petals scattered listlessly. An absurd scene. Let's eat. Asher stubbed out his cigarette, his voice hoarse. I dug my fingernails into my palm, struggling to keep my voice from trembling. You heard everything. The veins at his temple were visible. He picked up his fork and put some sweet and sour pork on my plate. His tone could be called calm. Yes, let's eat, the food's getting cold. I bit my tongue hard, tasting blood in my mouth. Asher, can we break up now? Those words were like a spark thrown into dry grass, instantly igniting a blaze, burning away all semblance of calm. Asher smashed all the dishes onto the floor. Some broken pieces of porcelain scattered near my feet. Asher stood amid the chaos. The flickering lights overhead cast his features in stark relief. I kept my eyes down, motionless. After what seemed like forever, Asher suddenly bent down, picked up a piece of broken porcelain, and gripped it. The sharp edge cut into his skin, bright red blood flowing between his fingers. As if immune to pain, he stared at me unblinkingly. Then he held his hand out to me. His voice choked with what seemed like bloody tears. Shelley, I'm bleeding, it hurts. When I didn't respond, he stubbornly kept his hand extended, repeating hoarsely, it hurts. Shelley. A drop of blood fell from his knuckles onto the back of my hand. I flinched, then wiped the blood away with my sleeve. The room was completely silent. Asher suddenly laughed, his eyes wet and red, both mocking and sorrowful. Shelley, you're such a bloody good actress. Right, I'm done acting now, I'm letting you go. I stood up to leave, but my wrist was caught in an iron grip. Asher pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight it felt like he wanted to merge me into his bones. His voice was urgent, I don't care at all about whose bloody diary it was. Just apologize to me, and I'll forget this ever happened. We can go back to how we were before. Shelley, just apologize to me. He asked for my apology while crying incoherently. Hot tears fell onto my neck. I tilted my head back, looking at the harsh white light on the ceiling. In my ears was the sound of the young man's choked sobs. After a while, I heard my own voice. Asher, you're so stupid, how could I ever like someone like you? I said such cruel words. Before leaving, Asher stood in the warm yellow light, his eyes bloodshot. He said, Shelley, I will definitely get revenge on you. I went back to my hometown. When I was little, I lived with my grandmother for several years. When I arrived, the old lady was sitting in the garden wearing a straw hat, shelling peanuts. "What are you doing here?" She glared at me. "I got into university," I said. "What's the use of that? A girl doesn't need so much education. You'd be better off getting married and having a son. When I was your age, I already had a son." The old lady sneered, her wrinkles bunching together. The son she mentioned was my father. He'd been in prison for 3 years now. "You haven't come asking for money, have you?" The old lady's voice suddenly grew louder. "I've got no money left. Spent it all on a burial plot. Just got this gold bracelet. Don't you dare think about taking this bracelet. I'm saving it for my son." She put down the peanut plants and covered the bracelet on her wrist with her withered fingers, eyeing me suspiciously. "I'm going far away," I managed in a local accent. "Nan, I probably won't come back." The old lady picked up the peanut plants again. "Then don't come back." "What's it got to do with me?" "She didn't send me away though. She made me some porridge with 2 eggs in it." The next morning, I quietly slipped some money under the musty old pillow. Then I left without a sound. On the bus, I opened the window and habitually put my hand in my pocket. Suddenly, I touched something cold. I froze, then pulled it out. It was the gold bracelet the old lady had been saving for her son. It was tarnished and dull with age. The wind blew in through the window, making my vision blur. I wrote an email reporting Frank's kickbacks to his company. Then I went home to watch him being taken away in a police car. The day I went to the airport was bright and clear, with no traffic. While queuing at security, my phone rang. I answered it. "Shelley, don't get on that plane." Asher's hoarse voice came through with static. Something made me turn around. There he was. The young man stood tall as a pine tree among the crowd. He looked at me pleadingly, his eyes red and wet as if tears might fall any second. I spoke softly. "Asher, let's part on good terms. Life in Germany has been quite fulfilling, with a busy course schedule. My flatmate, Kathy Green, is a cheerful and outgoing girl. We've become good friends. Strange environment, foreign language. Besides that, nothing much seems to have changed. After classes, I enjoy experimenting with recipes alone in the apartment. Since cooking isn't allowed in the flat, I found a job at a restaurant. Kathy always says I'm too reserved and should enjoy life more. So I did make some changes and made quite a few friends. Occasionally, I attend gatherings with friends. A room full of people from different backgrounds, chatting about everything under the sun. I just sit quietly and listen. They always thank me, saying I'm the best listener in the world. In my 3rd year in Germany, a junior student confessed his feelings for me. We're both from City L. His pursuit was quite grand. He sent flowers, diamonds, and designer bags. He even arranged fireworks for me on Christmas Eve. All our friends were deeply moved by his gestures. But I remained unmoved. The junior student was dejected and asked with a gloomy face. "Shelley, why are you always so cold? Have you ever truly liked anyone? Have I ever liked anyone?" Under the spectacular fireworks, a bold and unrestrained figure flashed before my eyes. That night, I stood on the apartment balcony for a long time. I never thought I liked Asher. Perhaps there were moments of wavering, but it wasn't enough. Yet when I recall all those years past, the first things that come to mind aren't the contemptuous looks from others or their insulting words, but rather Asher's dark eyes. After 8 years, I finally returned. "Shelley, wait at the airport entrance, I'll come to pick you up." Kathy called right after my plane landed. "No need, workaholic." "Get some rest," I declined with a laugh. "I've booked a hotel nearby. I'll come to the office tomorrow." I headed to the hotel with my luggage. I pressed the lift button. The elevator doors slowly opened before me. The luxury hotel's lift was bright and spacious. The interior was completely visible. A tall man stood alone inside. He was fully covered in black casual wear, a cap, and a face mask. His arms were crossed as he leaned lazily against the corner. Hearing the sound, he looked up. Upon seeing me, he calmly shifted his gaze away, completely unmoved. I froze on the spot. Asher Gray. Humans are indeed strange creatures. After 8 years, I could recognize who he was just by his eyes. I stepped into the lift. Standing in the opposite corner. Maintaining the maximum possible distance in this space. Which floor? His voice was flat as he stood by the buttons. 9th floor, I said. Asher didn't recognize me, or perhaps he simply didn't remember me. In the mirror beside me, I caught my reflection. No makeup, my long hair casually tied back with a few strands falling loose. The UV rays in Germany weren't strong. My skin had become fairer, and the freckles on my cheeks had faded slightly. Hard to say exactly how much I'd changed. Compared to 8 years ago, I looked distinctly different. The next day at noon, I checked out of the hotel. Kathy came to pick me up in her car. She had returned a year before me. She had started a new media company, and I was a partner. A charity gala dinner. The grand hall was magnificent, with soft piano music flowing through the air. There weren't many media representatives at this evening's event. I was hiding in a corner, adjusting my camera. "Oh, Mr. Gray is here. I'm such a fan." Wendy, my assistant, suddenly exclaimed excitedly beside me. "Who?" I asked casually without looking up. "Miss Webb, don't you know Asher Gray? He's quite famous." I couldn't hear the rest of what she said. I looked up in astonishment. The tall man stood not far away, quite conspicuous. I saw Asher completely after 8 years. Wearing a bespoke black suit, his features more defined than before, having lost their youthful softness. His whole demeanor was mature and reserved. The man's expression was gentle as he chatted with those around him. What a small world indeed. A young woman walked past us. She went straight to Asher. Whatever she said made her blush as she held out paper and pen. Asher took them and signed. They even took a photo together. Throughout it all, Asher maintained that gentle smile. I began to wonder if I had mistaken someone else for him. "Miss Webb, let's go get his autograph too." Wendy was practically bouncing with excitement. "What?" I blinked, somewhat dazed. "I'm too shy to go alone, please, please." But the event is about to start." Wendy didn't catch my subtle refusal. "We still have 20 minutes, sis. I've got paper and pen ready." With that, she grabbed my hand and rushed forward. "Wait." My words were lost in the moment. I never imagined that after 8 years, Asher and I would be standing face to face like this. I clutched my camera tightly, my fingertips turning white. Compared to my awkwardness, Asher merely glanced at me, his look fleeting. Then he turned his head to listen attentively to Wendy. Just like that day in the lift. He took the 2 postcards from Wendy's hand. "Could you make it personal, sir?" Asher's eyes crinkled as he smiled, his tone gentle, of course. Wendy's eyes sparkled as she told him her name and asked for a message. The atmosphere was warm. The crystal chandelier above was dazzling. I raised my hand to shield my eyes. Then I met a pair of clear eyes. "And what's your name, miss?" Asher asked. I paused for several seconds, watching him. Those narrow eyes held nothing but polite inquiry. "Shelley Webb, my name is Shelley Webb." He lowered his gaze and continued signing. His sleeve was slightly rolled up. The rose tattoo on his right wrist was gone, replaced by a red mark. He'd had it removed. Almost unconsciously, I shifted my gaze to his left hand. He wore a watch I couldn't see. Probably removed that one too. Mr. Gray, it's Shelley with an EY, not just Y. Wendy scratched her head, somewhat awkwardly correcting him. Asher paused, then smiled apologetically at me. "I'm sorry, Miss Webb, I'll fix that." At that moment, I finally realized Asher had done it deliberately. After the gala, I stood alone outside the hotel waiting for my car. In the dim light, I pulled the postcard from my pocket. To Shelley. The Y was crossed out. EY written above it. Below was the man's signature, Asher Gray. The handwriting was crisp and clean. Asher Gray, now a somewhat well-known artist. His paintings were bright and detailed. Like the artist himself, Asher was now known for being kind-hearted and modest. Over these years, he donated all his earnings from paintings to charity, keeping nothing. Wendy couldn't praise him enough. Gentle, polite, well-mannered. If someone had described Asher Gray with these words 8 years ago, I would have thought them mad. The cold wind stirred my hair as I pulled my coat tighter, slowly recalling the man from earlier. Both familiar and strange. His impeccable dress, smiling eyes, and that calm, gentle demeanor. I breathed in the cold air, suppressing the odd feeling in my chest. 8 years really was such a long time, long enough for someone to change completely. But surely this would be the last time. Things don't happen 3 times, especially not running into ex-boyfriends. 2 weeks later at Longrain Hill. In the cold December winter, the entire mountain was covered in white snow. In the freezing conditions, Kathy held her phone with a hand warmer attached to its back, looking serious. Inside information: Greenmill's deputy CEO is also holidaying at the ski resort this year. If we could network with him. Weren't you here to holiday with me? I interrupted. She rolled her eyes. You can work while on holiday. Last year, Thompson's team director met that deputy CEO at the golf club. Just chatted briefly, and the next month they got investment from Greenmill. We can't lose to them. I sighed. Pulling aside the restaurant curtain, I walked in. Meeting Fred was unexpected. Shelley? You're here too? In the restaurant corridor, Fred looked at me with pleasant surprise. I greeted him calmly. It's been a long time. Kathy caught up from behind. The moment she saw Fred clearly, she looked surprised. Shelley, you know Mr. Jackson? Fred nodded slightly. Yes, that's me. I caught Kathy's puzzled expression and realized. Then I couldn't help but laugh. So that deputy CEO, turns out it's you. Actually, I am the deputy. He glanced past me, lifting his chin slightly. The CEO's right behind you. I froze. Instinctively turned around. A man in a black ski jacket stood about 10 paces away. Asher wore a face mask, hands in his pockets. The warm yellow light fell on his brows, unable to soften that cold edge. Who would have thought such coincidences existed? Asher walked past me. The scent of wormwood. Sorry, am I interrupting your alumni catch-up? His voice was slightly hoarse, half his face hidden behind the mask, expression unreadable. As if possessed, I replied, no interruption. Kathy gave me an odd look. Good to hear. Asher nodded, then turned to Fred. If you're done chatting, we can go. After they left, I stood there for a long while. Kathy kept asking how I knew Fred. And if I knew Mr. Gray from Greenmill. If I knew Asher. I asked her how she could tell. She said, the vibe, just something about the vibe. I've met lots of people, I can't be wrong about this. Fred and his group of more than 10 friends came together. They were all lively and cheerful young people. Over the next few days, Kathy fully demonstrated her social skills. She quickly became a familiar face among their circle. Except for Asher. He seemed to be there just for skiing. Dressed in an all-black ski suit, layered but not bulky. Standing tall like a cold pine in the snow. Keeping his distance from the crowd. These days, he would ski a few laps alone on the slope, then return to the hotel to rest. Occasionally Fred would go over and chat with him. He would push his ski goggles up onto his helmet, revealing a pair of narrow, aloof eyes. With such strong detachment, he seemed to have reverted to the 18-year-old Asher. I really couldn't read him anymore. Kathy was excited every day. Because Nigel Fox was among that group. A rising actor in the entertainment industry. It was an unexpected pleasure. Kathy wanted to do a small interview with him, and had been figuring out how to build a good relationship these days. During skiing in the daytime, I scanned around. No familiar figure in sight. Hadn't he come today? I was a bit distracted. With skis on my feet. When I started, I lost control and began wobbling to the side. I had fallen many times these days, so I instinctively protected my head. The expected pain didn't come though, as I fell into a cold embrace. Wormwood fragrance. Almost instantly, I knew who it was. I froze, my hand still protecting my head. How many times are you going to fall? I was stunned for a moment at the familiar tone. Looking up, the man's face was completely covered. My reflection showed in his black ski goggles. My neck warmer had slipped down, revealing my face flushed from the cold. Looking somewhat disheveled. Asher? He tried to let go of me. You've got the wrong person. -11 degrees Celsius. It seemed to have frozen Asher's usually gentle personality as well. I can't stand steady. I held onto his arm, very lightly. He could shake me off at any moment. He lowered his head, looking at me through his ski goggles. How long are you going to keep up this act? A emotionless question, vague yet mutually understood. The cold air seeped into my lungs. I let go of his arm. That evening, Kathy and I went to a restaurant. With Christmas approaching, the place was decorated with Christmas lights, wreaths, and paper snowflakes. It was packed with customers, their cheerful chatter creating a festive atmosphere. As we were about to leave, we ran into Fred. Having dinner? He asked. Yes, but there are no tables available, I replied. Kathy was searching for other nearby restaurants on her phone. You can join us, Fred offered. Oh. Fred mentioned they were having a group dinner in a private room, as they would be leaving in 2 days. Is Nigel there? Kathy's eyes lit up at the news. Fred smirked, yes. Kathy leaned close to my ear. Perfect. I'll definitely get Nigel's WhatsApp tonight. Steam rose in the private dining room. Everyone welcomed Kathy and me. But I hadn't expected Asher to be there. At the round table, he sat at the head position, his expression cold. We were seated far apart. After sitting down, my attention was drawn to a flash of red. Nigel had reddish-brown hair and a silver lip ring that gleamed coldly. Someone offered him a drink, but he lazily opened a bottle of orange juice instead, saying, "My mum doesn't let me drink." He certainly didn't look like someone who followed his mother's rules. We'd all been wearing ski suits these past days. So this was my first time seeing his true appearance. He was quite different, every inch of him screaming rebellion and arrogance. I looked at him a bit longer. When I finally looked away, I unexpectedly met another familiar pair of eyes. The next second, Asher shifted his gaze away, the contact brief and emotionless. I tightened my fingers and poured myself a drink. Halfway through dinner, someone suggested playing a game. Even these wealthy young men played simple party games. Truth or dare. The difference was you could only choose dare. After several rounds, the atmosphere in the room was lively. Tasks like staring at each other for 20 seconds. Hugging for a minute, sending reconciliation messages to ex-girlfriends. I watched with great interest. Then suddenly, the bottle pointed at me. A few people fell silent. They weren't very familiar with me. Instinctively, I glanced in a certain direction. Asher was leaning back lazily. His eyelids drooping, casually checking his phone with one hand. Completely indifferent to everything around him. How about calling your ex-boyfriend? Someone tentatively suggested. Well, I regretted this now. 8 years without dating anyone. Just that one ex-boyfriend. Seeing my silence, Kathy whispered, "Can you make the call?" Yes. I nodded and took out my phone. Everyone fell silent, watching my movements intently. I tapped my screen, unblocking a certain number, and dialed. I put it on speaker. A brief beep sound came from the receiver. A moment's pause. Then another electronic ringtone suddenly sounded in the private room. Everyone's attention shifted to the source of that ringtone. Asher. The room grew even quieter than before, as people exchanged glances, hardly daring to breathe. Asher looked down at his screen, raising an eyebrow. Then with a tap of his finger, he hung up. He held up his phone to everyone. "Sorry," he said casually with a smile, "spam call." "Bloody hell. You scared me." Someone was the first to recover. The room erupted in noise again. I thought it was actually calling Gray. Yeah, my heart nearly stopped. As if something that dramatic would happen. Kathy's eyes were wide with shock. Except for her, no one noticed that when Asher hung up. The ringing on my end stopped too. When everyone's attention returned to me, I curved my lips slightly. He didn't answer. The incident passed quickly. In the ladies' room, Kathy was touching up her makeup in the mirror. "So Asher Gray is your ex?" she asked. I leaned against the sink. "Yes." She sighed. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "It was too long ago." I pressed my lips together, adding, "He really dislikes me now." Calling it a spam call, "He must hate you." My eyelashes trembled, and I remained silent. Noticing my mood, Kathy capped her lipstick and patted my shoulder. "Take your time here. Text me if you need anything." After Kathy left, I turned on the tap to wash my hands. The cold water flowing through my fingers helped clear my foggy mind a bit. After standing there for a while longer, I walked out of the bathroom. At the end of the corridor, a tall man was leaning against the wall, half his face hidden in shadow. In my daze, the figure before me gradually merged with the young man from 8 years ago. Cold and sharp, like a knife about to slice through one's neck. So different from the Asher who had been sitting at the dinner table earlier. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes distant. My feet were nailed to the spot, motionless. A silent yet intense standoff. After what felt like ages, he started walking towards me. He stopped 2 steps away. "Asher, you. Why did you come back?" he asked calmly, looking at me. Such a casual greeting, as if this moment was truly our first meeting since my return. I fidgeted with the hem of my clothes, for work. Perhaps he didn't hate me that much after all. Asher nodded, slipping one hand into his coat pocket. "Haven't dated anyone these years?" He paused. "Or did you just want to call me?" "No." My breath grew lighter. "I haven't dated anyone since then." A secret hope began swelling in my heart. "Then you should start dating someone." Asher seemed to laugh slightly, his tone cool. "I don't want to receive calls like that from you again." In an instant, my heart felt like it had been pierced by a thorn, bleeding with embarrassment. My fingernails dug deep into my palms, but even so, my voice still trembled. "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." "Shelley." Perhaps he was done pretending, as the mockery in his eyes was no longer concealed. He took a step back. 8 years on, and you haven't changed a bit." I took a deep breath, forcing a smile. "Mr. Gray, you've changed quite a lot, being both an artist and a businessman." What I did next could only be described as fleeing in panic. I didn't return to the private room, but texted Kathy and went back to the hotel alone. Kathy returned shortly after, collapsing onto the bed as soon as she entered. "That Nigel is so difficult to deal with," he kept dodging my questions. "I'm heading back to the office tomorrow. And the guy wouldn't even give me his WhatsApp." "Shelley, you'll have to keep trying for me tomorrow." She waved her hand weakly, thoughtfully avoiding asking why I'd left early. The next morning, I saw Kathy off in a taxi. I would have to spend the next few days of holiday alone. Back at the hotel, I changed to a single room. I went to the ski slopes again. After finishing my last skiing lesson, I wasn't in a hurry to practice. Wearing my gloves, I sat on a chair beside the slope. In front of me, a little girl about 10 years old was trying hard to move forward on her skis. I was lost in watching her. From the corner of my eye, I noticed someone sitting next to me. I turned my head and saw that striking reddish-brown hair. It was Nigel Fox, an unexpected encounter. I paid no attention and went back to watching the girl. "Senior, how long have you been sitting here?" I blinked, taking a moment to realize Nigel was talking to me. "Senior?" Nigel leaned back, hands pressed against the seat, his clean-cut jawline prominent. He had changed his lip piercing to a silver ring. "We went to the same secondary school." "I was 5 years below you." I was even more confused. 5 years? "Then you probably never saw me?" Nigel said my photo had been on the honor board, so he saw it every day. Unlike his appearance might suggest, he was more approachable than I'd imagined. "Senior, your motto was really cool. I've remembered it for many years." Secondary school motto? Near graduation, the form teacher had asked me to write something to inspire younger students. I wrote, "Hope the ants without umbrellas can safely get through a rainy day," Nigel said. The memory came back. I nodded slowly. Yes, that was it. But how was that cool? That wasn't my motto. He sat up straight. Then what was your motto, senior? I don't have one. We fell silent for a moment. I rubbed my hands together, remembering Kathy's request. Would you mind if I add you on WhatsApp? Nigel stretched his long legs out casually. Sure. We exchanged contacts. As I put my phone away, a shadow fell over me. Looking up, I met Asher's cold face. Asher? Didn't you say you weren't coming today? Asher looked down at us. Fred's looking for you. Nigel frowned. Fred's looking for me? Yes. Just then, a phone call came through, and Nigel answered it. All right, I'm coming now. Nigel stood up, waving his phone at me. Senior, we'll chat another time. Asher took his place beside me, watching Nigel's retreating figure. His voice was icy. What, you fancy that type now? Yeah, he's quite cool. I played along with his comment. Asher narrowed his eyes. He's not as rich as I was back then. You probably wouldn't be interested. I caught the sarcasm in his words. But his personality seems much better than yours, Mr. Gray. With that, I stood up and walked away alone. Perhaps it was because I had spent too long outside during the day. By evening, I had developed a fever. I got some medicine from the front desk but didn't take it. Instead, I had a rather silly craving for oysters Rockefeller. I took a taxi to a restaurant quite far away. When I arrived, I found the restaurant was closed. Standing in the cold wind, I tried to get another taxi. Finally, when one stopped, another family rushed in before me. A young mother was holding a little boy, looking anxious. Miss, my son has a bone stuck in his throat. Please, would you let us take this one? Before I could respond, the door slammed shut. Well, fair enough. A bone stuck in the throat that definitely calls for urgency. I pulled my woolen hat down further. Walking back shouldn't take too long. I started walking, occasionally looking back at my footprints in the thin layer of snow. After walking for a while, a beam of light came from behind. A black SUV stopped beside me. The passenger window rolled down. Fred rested his elbow on the window frame. Get in. You won't find any taxis at this hour. Hey senior, what a coincidence, Nigel greeted me from the driver's seat. I opened the back door. I hesitated for a moment. Asher was sitting in the far seat. He had a coat draped over him and appeared to be sleeping. After getting in, I wearily leaned towards the other side. This stretch of road wasn't smooth, so Nigel drove slowly. At a red light, Fred tapped the control panel a few times and played a song. It was Negotiate with Love by Rachel Stevens. Nigel frowned. Fred, have you changed your music taste? Fred glared at him. Shut it, kid. Nigel scoffed, then peered into the rearview mirror. Hey senior, if you were in high school with Fred, weren't you also in school with Asher? He seemed to have made some grand discovery. The air in the car seemed to freeze for a moment. I suppose, I responded tiredly, we weren't really close. Ahem. Fred coughed twice. Kid, eyes on the road. The car soon reached the hotel entrance. A gust of wind rushed in. I slowly opened my eyes. Asher was awake now, though I wasn't sure when he'd woken up. He showed no reaction to my presence. He just sat there, staring out into the dark night. I shook my slightly dizzy head and opened the door. My legs felt weak as I got out, and Nigel steadied me. Senior, you're burning up. Are you running a fever? He exclaimed in shock. Inside the car, Asher paused while putting on his coat and looked up at me. I managed to steady myself, my throat feeling dry. Just a small cold, nothing serious. Thanks for the ride. I should go now. I sat in the hotel lobby corner for a while. Then I got up and went out. I found a small restaurant nearby. Ordered a bowl of soup. I ate too quickly and burned my tongue, leaving it stinging. Just my luck today. After eating, I slowly walked back. In the empty hotel corridor, a tall man was standing at my door. Seeing me, he strode over. Where did you go? Why are you wandering around when you're ill? His tone was harsh, angry. I blinked hard, my vision slightly blurry. After a moment's daze, I composed myself and took out my key card. "Mr. Gray, did you need something?" Asher frowned, pulling out a small bag of medicine from his coat pocket. "Fever reducers and cold medicine. Take one of each tonight." I didn't take them, just looked down at the bag until my eyes burned. Then I sniffed and said, "No need, thank you for your concern, Mr. Gray." Asher's eyes were dark as he stared at me for a long time. Silence spread around us. "Shelley, what are you feeling sorry for yourself about?" It was like opening a bottle of bitter lemon. An overwhelming sourness welled up inside me. I bit my tongue, tasting blood. "Asher, do you hate me?" I asked him out of nowhere. I desperately wanted to hear the answer. "Don't you already know the answer to that?" Asher laughed coldly, as if it was absurd. "Shelley, you were the one who deceived me, took money from my mother and ran away. You did quite well at that, disappearing for 8 years. What now? Having regrets? Back to put on another act?" As if he couldn't stand my self-pity. He brought up these memories one by one, mercilessly, tearing apart any semblance of dignity. I suddenly felt drained. "I don't regret it, Asher." "Don't regret it?" Asher's fingers clenched. "Then who are you playing the victim for?" He was determined to mock me. "I really don't regret it, Asher. It was my choice." I looked at him, my heart aching. "I'm not feeling sorry for myself or playing the victim. It's fine if you hate me, fine if you pretend not to know me. I'm not sad. You can't have it both ways, it was all my choice." I must have been delirious from the fever, rambling and struggling to breathe. Asher's jaw was tense as he silently watched me in this state. After a while, he raised his hand, gently touching my face. His thumb brushed my eye corner, warm and dry. "Why are you crying? You think tears will make anyone feel sorry for you?" My head was pounding, heavy as lead, tears flowing endlessly, everything hazy. With some difficulty, I reached into my other pocket, pulled out a bank card, and pushed it into his hand. "It's my savings from these years. The pin is your birthday, your birthday." I sobbed quietly, crying harder and harder. "I'll save up the rest." "Asher, I'm sorry. Can you hate me a little less?" Before I fell, someone caught me. He held me tight. He said, "Shelley, is it so hard to admit you can't forget me?" I woke up again at 2 in the afternoon the next day. I sat up in bed. On the bedside table were scattered pills, a half glass of water, and a bank card. I touched my forehead. The fever had broken. It was obvious who was responsible. I buried my face in the pillow, feeling embarrassed. I didn't know what had come over me. 8 years abroad, I'd faced robberies, discrimination, and all sorts of trouble without shedding a tear. Yet here I was, crying so much over a simple fever. Perhaps we become more fragile as we grow older. Shortly after waking up, a hotel staff member knocked on the door. They brought me a thermal container with oysters Rockefeller. After that day, I returned to work. I hadn't seen Asher since then. On Christmas Eve, I went alone to the city center square for the celebrations. It was crowded with people gathered around the large screen in the middle. I held the string of a balloon in my palm and took out my phone to snap a photo. The countdown began, and I was pushed into the crowd, looking up at the countdown on the screen. 10, 9, 8, 1. At the final second, the balloon slipped from my hand. Amidst the noise, countless balloons rose upward, carrying everyone's wishes, forming a romantic sea of flowers. The big screen displayed the words, "Hug your loved ones." People around me began embracing each other in pairs and groups. Most of them had come with family, friends, or partners. I touched my ear, not expecting such a moment. Suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist. The next instant, I fell into a warm embrace. Startled, I looked up to see a man's sharp jawline. I blinked, lowered my head, and hugged his waist back. After it ended, Asher guided me through the crowd. He took me to the rooftop of a high-rise. The terrace was furnished with tables, chairs, and sofas. From here, we could see the bustling crowd in the square below. Asher stood by the railing, looking down. The night wind ruffled his hair. Asher, don't stand so close to the edge, I said nervously. He turned around, looking at me intently. The quiet, thick darkness spread behind him. Shelley, why did you hug me back there? He'd been quiet all this time. And that's the first thing he asked. You hugged me first, I said. Makes no difference, he replied matter-of-factly. He really hadn't changed at all. I pressed my lips together, finding it hard to speak. Shelley, since you hugged me, shouldn't you compensate me? I got caught up in his logic. How? I asked instinctively. Well, he said, lowering his brow slightly, speaking slowly. You could tell me what wish you made when you released the balloon. No way, that's private. I came to my senses. Why should I compensate you? I asked, confused. The hug was a two-person thing. But clearly, Asher wasn't interested in being reasonable. He laughed softly, stepping closer to me. I caught the cool fragrance of his cologne. Shelley, are you trying to deny taking advantage of me? Taking advantage? Did he dislike the hug that much? But you were the one who I frowned, getting annoyed. When I had a fever, you even dash. I stopped myself mid-sentence. In the silence, only the wind could be heard. I stiffly lowered my head, wishing I could disappear into the ground. Asher slowly narrowed his eyes. So, you weren't asleep that day. You knew I kissed you? He pointed it out without a hint of embarrassment. I remained silent, staring fixedly at my shoe tips. Mumbling quietly, it was such a long kiss, I wasn't dead. What? My ears burning, I said, nothing. Shelley, you want to get back together, he said. A statement, not a question. My eyelashes fluttered as I looked at him. Is that possible? Asher raised an eyebrow, his lips curving slightly upward. Depends on how you prove it. He stood before me. His dark pupils sparkled with light, his hair falling forward, wearing that slightly casual smile. Just like years ago. In the wind, I could hear my own heart racing. Then I'll try my best to prove it. The next day, I went to the shopping center to look for a Christmas gift for Asher. I never expected to run into Irene there. The once vivacious girl I remembered was carrying shopping bags. Wearing a brown knit dress, her belly slightly swollen. She looked at me in surprise and said, Shelley? There was no cursing, no sarcasm. In the coffee shop, Irene and I sat face to face. We chatted casually about recent events. As if the past had never happened. The hot coffee swayed gently, releasing wisps of steam. Irene ordered hot milk, softly caressing her belly, her expression serene. She got married last year and is now 6 months pregnant. After chatting briefly, we both fell silent. Irene held her cup of milk with both hands and hesitantly asked, Mom misses you. Would you like to visit her? I lowered my eyes and took a sip of coffee. There's no need. Some wounds can't be healed by time. As I was leaving, Irene called out Sis from behind me. She said, I'm really sorry. I walked away without looking back or hesitating. When we're young, we all do foolish things, big or small. As we grow older and gain more experience, our thoughts mature. We come to regret those moments from our youth. But only the victim has the right to say, it's all in the past. I can't bring myself to forgive graciously, nor can I summon the energy to condemn anymore. All I can do on this deep autumn day is pick up a yellowing leaf. Let it go, and watch it drift away in the wind. A week later, Kathy drove me to the airport. In the terminal hall, she took a photo of my back. She posted on her social media, off she goes again, safe travels. While waiting at the gate, I received a message. It was from Fred. Are you going to Germany again? You're not going to stay away for 8 years this time, are you? Please don't, Asher would go mental again. I frowned and typed back. Asher? What's wrong with him? You haven't boarded yet, have you? I'm nearby actually. 15 minutes later, Fred appeared before me, out of breath. I was quite puzzled. Why did you really come? Fred rolled his eyes and said, if I didn't come, Asher would probably throw himself into the Thames tonight. I found it amusing and my eyes crinkled with a smile. Is it really that serious? After our reunion, I hadn't noticed Asher being particularly hung up on me. Then why isn't he here himself? Fred shook his head with a complicated expression. I told him to come after you, but he said something about giving you freedom. That idiot has gotten even more peculiar these past few years. Giving me freedom, something the 18-year-old Asher would never have done. I'm just going back to Germany to handle some property paperwork. Fred's words made me realize something. Asher, has he not been doing well these past few years? By the floor-to-ceiling windows in the airport terminal. Fred lit a cigarette and spoke slowly. He said after I left, Asher went completely mad. He drank himself into a stomach hemorrhage and was rushed to hospital in the middle of the night. When he woke up, he insisted on going to Germany to find me, which led to a huge row with his mother. During that time, I think he was ill but wouldn't tell anyone. He was like a ghost for months. Later he took up painting and seemed to get better. I secretly looked at his paintings once. He liked to paint eyes. Your eyes. My fingers trembled. In the 4th year after you left, when the company had some success, we had a few drinks on Christmas Day, and he called you. The memories fell like damp rain, drop by drop on my heart. That Christmas, I was at a party with some friends. I was making mince pies in the kitchen. A senior friend answered the phone for me. When I got my phone back, the call had already ended. My friend apologized. They didn't say anything. I shrugged it off, probably a wrong number. I glanced at the caller information, then froze. Unknown number, from City L. I stared at City L for a while, then saved the number in my contacts. But that number never called again. After that call, he stayed in his room for a very long time. The next day when he came out, he stopped drinking, stopped painting eyes. Just threw himself into work like nothing had happened. But I always felt he'd become an empty shell again. In the end, I didn't board that plane. Following Fred's address, I went to Asher's house. The door code was simple, the date we started dating. The living room was empty. I went upstairs and opened the bedroom door. Heavy curtains blocked out all light. It was pitch black. A shadowy figure sat on the floor, leaning against the bed. I walked in, catching the faint smell of alcohol. Moving forward, my foot hit a beer bottle. I called out softly, Asher. No response. I walked over and pulled the curtain slightly. Harsh light poured in, spilling over him. The dejected man's eyelashes fluttered, slowly opening his eyes. I knelt before him. Touching his forehead, are you feeling ill? How much did you drink? He remained silent, his pupils gradually focusing as he stared at me, as if trying to confirm something. Perhaps due to the alcohol, he lacked his usual aggression. In the sunlight, his thin eyelids were tinged pink. After a while, he turned away, avoiding my touch. Weren't you leaving? Why did you come back? I wasn't leaving, I softly coaxed him. I bought you a Christmas gift. I took out a box from my bag. Inside lay a bracelet. A delicate silver chain with a red gem in the shape of a candy. I had planned to give it to him when I returned. It's ugly. Who would like that? Give me your hand. 2 seconds later, he extended his left hand, face flushed. As I fastened the bracelet, my fingertips felt an uneven texture. I turned his hand over. That tattoo, sweet tooth. The blackish blue tattoo, with reddened skin around it. My fingers traced the jagged marks as my nose began to tingle. Why didn't you have it removed? He lowered his gaze, his eyelashes casting shadows beneath. It's none of your business. He'd drunk quite a bit. His eyes were watery, his voice low and hoarse, awkward. Stay away from me, we're just classmates who barely know each other. Like a rain-soaked animal. Ignoring his words. I leaned forward and hooked my fingers around the silver chain on his neck. He didn't resist, letting me. The chain hidden under his collar held a ring. That 33-pound ring. 8 years later, the cheap silver band was covered in scratches. I blinked, and tears fell without warning. Why are you crying? He wiped my tears. Don't cry. I hugged him, burying my tears in his shoulder. Emotions could no longer be contained. Asher, I admit it, I want everything. I can't forget you, I miss you. He slowly, tremblingly hugged me back. Our hearts pressed together. I cried, and he cried too, trembling with quiet sobs. You can, Shelley, you can have everything. I'll give you anything. But please, don't leave me with nothing, at least, love me. Shelley, don't leave me again. Extra Chapter 1. Shelley had always considered herself emotionally barren. Children who grow up without love tend to go one of two ways. Either desperately seeking it, or avoiding it entirely. Clearly, Shelley was the latter. Loving or being loved held no meaning for her. Past hurts remained so vivid they became festering wounds. She built high walls around her heart. Walls covered in dark, damp moss. Nothing could get out, nothing could get in. Then she deliberately got close to Asher. They started dating. As time passed, cracks began to appear in those walls. She didn't know how to handle it, feeling helpless in her anxiety. Fortunately, Asher's mother appeared then, showing her a clear path. Yes, getting close to Asher had been part of the plan all along. So she left, without looking back. To her, love was too intangible compared to the tangible future within reach. She didn't regret her decision. Nor did she let herself think about that bold young man from her memories. But on the day she returned from Germany, she saw Asher again in the lift. The winter wind and snow from 8 years ago crept through the cracks in her walls. Later, when she saw that 33-pound ring again, in that moment, her walls came crashing down. Extra Chapter 2. Asher never thought he couldn't live without someone. Until breaking up with Shelley, those days were bloody awful. He'd get drunk late at night, constantly replaying their breakup. Even when things got ugly, she remained so cold. Always like that, ready to detach at any moment. He should have noticed earlier. She said, "How could I ever fall for someone like you?" Bloody hell, that cut deep. In that moment, holding her, Asher felt Shelley was made of knives. Embracing her left him bleeding. Right, someone like him, a worthless mess. Deserved to be thrown away. The second year after Shelley left, he learned to paint. The usual restlessness would calm when he held a brush. Somehow, without really meaning to, Asher developed a second persona. He became an artist. He was quite good, occasionally interviewed by media. They wrote about him being a gentle, kind-hearted man. Rather amusing. Reading those articles, Asher wondered how Shelley would react seeing him like this. Would she be happy? Pathetic, he cursed himself. Even now, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Asher later visited Germany frequently. Almost monthly. When friends asked, he'd say it was for business. What else could it be? Surely not chasing after someone heartless? Who'd be that desperate? Standing on German streets, weary from travel, Asher would scan the crowds passing by. Only he knew what he hoped to see. Germany was vast, he had no idea where Shelley was. Just gambling on luck, but his luck never came through. Sometimes at crossroads, he'd wonder what to say if he actually met Shelley. Long time no see? Or just hi? Would that cold woman even remember him? For years after Shelley left, slightly drunk, Asher called her. A man answered. Asher admits. In that moment, he wanted to take a knife and run them both through. End it all together. He heard many voices in the background. Must have been a party. After her outburst, she moved away from the crowd. Sounds of laughter and joy. Shelley had made many friends. She was doing well. In a life without him. That reality nearly broke him. Shelley had gotten everything she wanted. And none of it included him. Asher thought he might as well stab himself. 8 years after Shelley left, Asher saw a quote online. The only constant in this world is change. Don't let the past hold you back, move forward. A simple truth. Asher thought it was time to let go. Perhaps time really could heal all wounds. He decided to visit Germany one last time, for closure. That day, he'd planned to head to the airport. When the lift doors opened, the figure he dreamed of stood before him. the thin woman outside the lift, staring at him with her round eyes. In that moment, Asher's heart beat slowly, thumping in his chest. He couldn't lie to himself. He would never let go. He would spend his whole life entangled with the woman before him.